Hi, I know lesson 8.2 has been kind of complicated, so I am going to solve a couple of problems. These may or may not be in your lesson quiz, depending on what version of the quiz you get. However, I thought they were good examples of showing how to solve two of the equations. So, what I'm going to do is speaking quickly, I may use a wrong phrase, but please follow along. There are a lot of steps. Please feel free to watch the video multiple times until it helps you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this first equation. The easiest way to simplify this equation is to identify every term that you see in the denominator. So here we see two terms. We see x plus 4, which is repeated, and then I see the term of 2. So I'm going to multiply each factor by x plus 4 and also by 2, because that is every term I see in the denominator. Now, when I look at this problem, the opposite of dividing by x plus 4 is multiplying by x plus 4. So these cancel out, and 1 times 2 is 2. Over here, the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. So 1 times x plus 4 is x plus 4. And on this side of the equation, the opposite of dividing by x plus 4 is multiplying by x plus 4. And 1 times 2 is 2. I'm going to combine like terms and solve for x. And I see that x equals -4. Now, the second equation is definitely more complex. The most important thing you need to check for, which a lot of people forget to do, is to make sure that each of these denominators is fully factored. Now, x minus 2, there's no way that I can factor x minus 2. And also x, there's nothing I can do to that. But this x squared minus 4 is not fully factored. So, based on what you should know about factoring, this x minus 4 is actually the result of multiplying these two factors, x plus 2 and x minus 2 together. So now, that part of the equation is fully factored, and I'm going to copy the rest of the equation down. So now I'm going to look for all of my factors that are present in the denominator. I have x minus 2, so I'm going to multiply each of these terms times x minus 2. I also see the term x plus 2. Okay, I already had x minus 2. And then the other term I see is x. Okay, now I'm going to focus on one term at a time, and I'm going to cross x squared out, and I'm going to write down everything I have left. I have a 2 left times x plus 2 times x. I'm going to go to the next term. I'm going to cross off x plus 2 and x minus 2, and I have a 7 times x left. And over here, I'm going to cancel out the x's, and I have a 5 and an x minus 2 and an x plus 2. Okay, now I'm going to simplify each of these terms. Okay, over here, I'm going to use the distributive property, and I'm going to do 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 2 is 4. But then I still have to multiply that times x. So I'm going to go 2x times x is 2x squared. And 4 times x is 4x. Over here, 7 times x is just 7x. So on the left side of the equation, these are all of the terms that I'm left with. Over here, I'm going to distribute the 5. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times -2 is -10. But I still have another term that I need to multiply by. And every time you see a binomial times a binomial, you have to remember that you have to use the FOIL strategy, multiplying the first term times the first term. 5x times x is 5x squared. Outside, 5x times 2 is 10x. Inside terms, negative 10 times x is negative 10x. And last times last is negative 20. Now on each side of the parentheses, I'm going to combine like terms. So I have 2x squared minus 11x. And over here, I have 5x squared. These cancel out because they're inverses, minus 20. Now I continue to move all of my terms to one side of the equation to make the equation equal to 0. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 2x squared from each side. And I have a negative 11x equals 5x squared minus, I'm sorry, that's 3x squared. Let me just write it over again. 3x squared minus 20. I'm going to subtract 11x from each side. And I have 0 is equal to 3x squared minus 11x minus 20. Now I still have to solve for x. And in order to solve for x, I'm going to factor this trinomial. And remember, that's doing FOIL in reverse. So I have to find a first term and a first term that when I multiply it together, it equals 3x squared. And that's going to be 3x and x. My outside and inside terms, when I multiply my outside and my inside terms and then combine them, I'm going to get the result of negative 11x. But my last terms are going to give me the result of 20. So I've already done this previously, so I know that my terms to get negative 20 are going to be 4 and 5. And now I need to figure out where my plus sign and my minus sign go. So I'm going to look at this, and I know my first times my first gives me 3x squared. My outside, 3x and 15 is 15x. My inside, 4 and x is 4x. And then my last, 4 times 5 is 20. But I need to figure out which of these needs to be negative. I know that negative 15 and positive 4 will give me that result of 11. So my negative 15 came from 3x times 5. So that's going to be my negative term, and that's going to be my positive term. Now to finally solve this equation, I make 3x plus 4 equal to 0, and I also make x plus 5 equal to 0, and I solve for x. Let me start here. I'm going to subtract 5 from each side, and x equals negative 5. Over here, I'm going to subtract 4 from each side, and I have 3x equals negative 4, and I'm going to divide by 3. Sorry, I ran out of room. And x equals negative 4/3. So I have two answers. X equals negative 4/3, and also x equals negative 5. I know that's complicated. I tried to break down the steps. Please review this lesson and try to solve these exact same problems alone on your paper, and then go back and compare it to this video to see that you're following the correct steps and recognizing where you get stuck, and it will certainly help you prepare for the lesson and understand the lesson better. I know the second one has a lot of steps. The important things are, step 1 is to make sure each of your terms is fully factored, and then as you work through the problem, pay careful attention to your signs, but when you get the whole equation equal to 0, you then need to factor it back out and make each factor equal to 0, and you should end up with 2 answers. So I hope this helps you understand lesson 8.2 a little better. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you.